So picture this. You just got back from a day of torture at work and you're like, no way I'm going back there tomorrow. It's moments like this that make you want to ditch the whole 9 to 5 scene and escape to the good life. But hold up, you don't have to rely on winning the lottery or some rich dude's generosity to make your dreams come true. Lucky for you, I've got the hookup on how to start making money from dividends and never have to work again. Welcome to The Smart Investor, where we help teach people about finance and how to become financially independent. Make sure to subscribe and like the video if it helps you in your financial journey. Watch this video and get ready to live your best life. If you ask me, one of the biggest travesties we see today is the growing number of people spending the majority of their waking hours at a job they simply cannot stand. Now, don't get me wrong, of course. I know we all have bills to pay, and work is usually the way that people meet these financial obligations. But I've always felt like there must be a better way. In fact, I've started to become aware of the growing disdain people had for their jobs basically as soon as I started my professional career probably 5 years ago now. When I first started working, I figured people would be glad to be at work given that they were being paid and all. However, I soon came to realize that this was definitely not the case. Once you receive one paycheck, the novelty wears off and all you're left with is often a bunch of mundane work and days that seem to extend longer and longer over time. Now, these sentiments didn't just ring true where I was working. This is actually a general sentiment amongst the global working community. As for a Gallup study, 52% of people are not engaged at work, which is probably why you'll often see your colleagues drafting new players for the fantasy sports or surfing Reddit at work as you pass by their desk. What's worse is that people's work conditions, which remain contributed to their discontent, have apparently only gotten worse. Another Gallup poll asked respondents about the state of their current working conditions, and about 40% said that the quality of their position has worsened in the last few years. One of these key factors contributing to the decline of the enjoyment of work has to be the longer work hours. It was one thing when your boss could bother you for 8 hours a day at the office, but now that many more people are working from home, the emails and requests never seemingly end. Of course, this is not to say that every single person with a job is miserable, but if I had to bet, my guess would be that most workers would rather be doing about other million things than attending to their jobs, especially if their money wasn't an issue. Well, with enough dividend income, which if coined is achieving dividend freedom, you never have to step foot in the office or take another Zoom call ever again. You can literally just sit back, collect dividend checks, and spend every last day you have left on Earth doing whatever the hell you want, whenever you want. However, while living this desirable lifestyle is totally attainable, most people never will, and knowing why is the first step in achieving dividend freedom. If you ask me, there are 3 main reasons that most people never achieve this. The first is that they don't even know that this is an option in the first place. For people like you and me, we've known about dividend investing for a while, but you're not the majority of people. In fact, in the US, only about 56% of people even own any stock, which supports the fact that not as many people are aware of the dividend freedom lifestyle as you may think. The second reason most people never live off dividends is that they simply do not make and save enough money to start building towards this lofty financial goal. In fact, recent 2021 reports show that still more than 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I think you'll agree that being able to live off dividends will be pretty hard if you don't even have the funds to invest with in the first place. Finally, there are those who actually save and invest month after month, but have no idea if their investing efforts will get them to the dividend freedom promised land. In fact, it still amazes me how many people invest but do it blindly simply because they've been told that they need to invest their money. Let me make something clear right now. Achieving dividend freedom requires consistent, deliberate action. There is no luck involved. As such, you need a plan, and a detailed one at that, in order to make your dream of living off dividends a reality. Now, if you're currently scratching your head, wondering what key components must be attended to in order to achieve dividend freedom, then don't worry, I'll get into it next. Ultimately, the ability to retire off dividend income hinges on 2 key figures: your cost of living and the size of your portfolio, with the former driving the latter. Your cost of living is obviously important because it dictates how much you need to make to continue supporting your day-to-day lifestyle as well as you've escaped your 9 to 5 job. In fact, if you ask me, your cost of living is the most important factor in achieving this desirable lifestyle, but I'll get into that a little later. Your portfolio size, on the other hand, is important because these are the funds that will generate the income you need to keep yourself financially afloat. Ideally, your dividend portfolio will consist primarily of a very reliable and upward trending stock that will support your work-free lifestyle now and into the future. I know that the link between these 2 important figures may seem a bit confusing to you, so let me bridge the gap with an example. Let's say you've calculated your annual living cost to be $60,000 a year, putting taxes aside. If we use the average dividend yield of 3%, you would need to have $2 million invested to achieve dividend freedom. I know for some people, the thought of amassing $2 million seems impossible, but trust me, it's attainable for most people, and I'll explain how to get there shortly. First, we need to talk about the 2 keys to success when striving for this lofty financial goal. As you are probably coming to see, achieving dividend freedom is no walk in the park. In fact, it's more like being chased in the park by a stray pit bull that's really angry. But with the right approach, you can pull off this amazing financial feat. So the first key to achieving financial freedom is consistent investing. In fact, I think that achieving most things in life just comes down to being consistent. For instance, when your girlfriend constantly nags you, she usually gets what she wants, or when you consistently eat the right meals and exercise, you end up seeing your goal body weight on the scale. In short, consistency breeds success, and building up your dividend freedom fund requires a lot of it. For most people, the quest for dividend freedom will be a long but worthwhile journey. As I just explained, with an average cost of living at $60,000, you will need to have $2 million invested. This equates to investing $1,000 a month for roughly the next 40 years. Now I know that you're thinking, I'm going to be in adult diapers by the time this 40 years pass. And I agree that for most people, achieving dividend freedom will take them well into their later years. To attain it, fortunately, there are a few ways that you can ensure that you can achieve this desirable lifestyle with certainty and in the shortest time frame possible, which is what I want to dive into more right now. For anyone looking to achieve dividend freedom in the shortest time frame possible, I recommend you to employ the 3A model. The 3A model stands for Automate, Adapt, and Accelerate, and in a minute you will know how you can put each piece in place so that you can achieve dividend freedom before you're old, and so old you have to go from having a favorite car to having a favorite walker. Now, the first component in the 3A model is the automate phase. As I've already mentioned a few times now, being consistent is essential to achieving dividend freedom, and as you can imagine it would be pretty hard to amass at least a few $1 million with its steadfast investing efforts on your side. However, most people can't even remember to take out food for dinner or call their mom once a week, and as such, they let human error get in the way of living off dividend income alone. Do not let this happen to you. In the automate phase, you want to create a systematized method of investing. For instance, I have auto contributions set up between my bank and my investing account so that the money is transferred between my accounts with no effort on my part. This way, as long as I have the money to invest, the contribution will be made and I move one step closer to achieving my own work-free lifestyle. And next up, we have the adapt phase. Chances are, right now, you're living within a means that would require you to have a substantial amount of money invested to begin living off dividends. As you saw in my previous example, living off $60,000 a year would require you to have roughly $2 million invested. But given that most people spend more than they would in turn, need more in order to support their dividend freedom dream. Well, the nice thing about spending more is that you can all just spend less. And spending less is exactly what you need to do if achieving dividend freedom as soon as possible is something you aim to achieve. Now, earlier when I said that your cost of living was integral to this path towards financial freedom, I truly meant it. Cutting down that $60,000 cost of living to $50,000 would require you to save up $300,000 less in your investing accounts, saving you 3 years of making your $1,000 a month contribution. There's roughly 60 days that you get to forego having to work simply by learning to live off a bit less than you presently are. And finally, we've entered the acceleration phase. Let's face it, no one wants to wait 40 years to start living the dream of earning dividend income. Fortunately, you don't have to wait that long if you prioritize maximizing your income. While the cost of living is definitely important in the financial freedom equation, your contribution size is critical as well. As you can imagine, the more you make, the more you can invest. For instance, with a $50,000 per year cost of living, simply doubling your monthly contribution to $2,000 per month would cut down your dividend freedom timeline from 34 years to 25 years. That's almost an extra decade without having to work. Now I'll be the first to admit that making this extra money is easier said than done. If making more money was that easy, everyone would be doing it. However, I think that the reason most people don't is twofold. First, they don't understand why they should. If you needed a reason, it should be the fact that by doing so, you can buy back almost a decade of work-free time, and time is the most non-renewable resource. Second, most people don't know how to make more money outside of getting raises and promotions at work. And if you ask me, there are really good options for making money outside of your 9 to 5, with some options requiring more active effort than others. For instance, if you are adverse to working more, simply working a part-time job or freelancing can easily make you the extra money you need to speed up your path to dividend freedom. In fact, freelancing is how I've been able to make a few extra $1,000s a month, and there are many more other options that you could take. Starting side hustles, starting businesses, there are so much ways to increase and accelerate. And that is all you need to retire early with the power of dividend investing. And if you want to up your financial life, increase your financial IQ with a smart investor and subscribe now. I hope you learned something today. We'll see you in the next video, guys.